All right, so we're now recording, and so all of the sessions for this conference are going to be recorded and then popped up onto YouTube, and so made available. It'll take a day or so to get the videos up after after the end of the conference. I might be able to get the sessions from today up later today, but it does take a little bit of time for it to be processed. And so just start with an advert for next year's conference. At this stage, we're planning to have the conference in person again next year. And so this is now the third year in a row that we've gone online only. And we still have our pizza conference dinner that was paid for back in 2019. And I confirmed last week with the wood-fired pizza place that indeed the pizza order is still valid, and that they're ready to deliver our pizza and desserts and antipasto and a whole lot of other things for a pizza feast. And so that's going to be, the conference is going to be on the 31st of March to the 2nd of April 2023. And we've got the hotel booking, etc., all done there. So put that in your calendars, ready for next year. We will certainly try to make it a combined online and in person for next year. So we will try and make it available, we'll live stream it, and have recordings and allow people to come in via Zoom. Exactly how we're going to organize that, we haven't worked out the details yet, but that is the plan, to be able to both live stream and have in person. So for this year, we have a great schedule lined up. So this is the schedule that we have for this year. So you can, if you've got your favorite talks, make sure you're around for them. It's really good to have a live audience and not just, and to have questions. The conference, we called it many years like an unconference. It's deliberately not a very strictly organized conference. We deliberately have the audience asking questions and interacting with the speakers. So you should expect that if you're a speaker. And so we're starting off with William in about 20 minutes time, starting on the BlueOS companion. William, are you around and ready for giving your talk?
Yes, I'm here.
Fantastic, welcome. Then I'll be giving a systems update about everything that's been happening at sort of the low levels of ArduPilot. Moving on to Randy with a rover boat update. If any of the speakers want to modify their talk title, feel free to do that, and just let me know in a PM or in the conference chat channel. Those of you who haven't noticed, we have a conference chat channel on the ArduPilot Discord server, and you can have sort of general discussions about the conference. Feel free to ask questions there, or discuss topics or put in links related to the talks. So after Randy, we'll have an ESP32 update, and that will end today's sessions. So we've got Nick. Nick, are you around? You're ready to give your update on ESP32 later today? I think Buzz will be helping you with that. Okay, we don't have Nick at the moment. Hopefully he'll be around later, ready for his talk.
Tridge, do you mind if I'm adding something here?
Yeah, sure, Tom.
Yeah, the dates on there. Keep in mind, everyone, that the day of the week is actually Canberra time.
That's right, yes. It is noted at the top of the page, but yeah, you're absolutely right. So it is, in fact, still Thursday in the United States. They're always behind over there. So it's still Thursday evening in the United States. So you've got to, adjust the day on the schedule to, it is all relative to Canberra, the center of the world. At least as far as ArduPilot's concerned, that's where we hold the conference. So we're using Canberra time zone as our primary time zone. But thanks, Tom, for that reminder. All right, so today we don't have an afternoon evening session. So we get a little bit of time for preparing talks for the next day in the afternoon. And then tomorrow we have both morning and afternoon sessions, Canberra time. So we have 4 talks in the morning, and then we have 3 talks in the afternoon, evening. So it's going to be quite a long and exhausting day with a bit of a gap in the middle to have some food or deal with, household tasks, that sort of thing. So you get a bit of time off. And then Sunday, we also have a morning and afternoon session, kicking off in the morning with Paul with his GNC update and finishing up with our roadmap discussion. And that'll go quite late. So it starts at 9 p.m. Canberra time, and which will be good for people in Europe, less good for those in the United States. Apologies for that. It's hard to have a time that's good for everyone in the world, but that's where we tend to have discussions about, what we're going to be aiming to get done over the next year. And all members of the dev team will be very welcome to be involved in that discussion and to put up what they're thinking of doing over the next year. We sometimes have pledges where developers say, what they're planning to do or make promises about their planned development over the next year. And sometimes those pledges even get done, which is always nice to see. So that's about it for the sort of administrative side and what's coming up in the conference. So any questions at all about the, sorry, I had one more slide, sorry, about the live streaming. So the conference is live streamed, and there's links on Facebook and discuss.rgpilot.org and Discord, and we've already got some people joined the live stream. Feel free to share the Zoom link with your colleagues, but don't share it publicly. Feel free to share the live stream link with anyone. We had, in the first time we did the Zoom conference, we got Zoom bombed because the link was public, and we ended up getting hundreds of people coming in and posting horrible links to things. So we're trying to avoid the Zoom call link being made public. But the live stream link, feel free to share it with anyone, and putting it up on social media and making people aware of it would be great, because we can have as many people as we like on the YouTube live stream. The timing for the talks is a bit approximate. So if you're scheduled to give a talk, try to get here a bit early before your talk is due to start, and be ready if you're up next. We may also just have gaps. If a talk finishes early, there may be discussions or a gap. As I said, that the conference is deliberately fairly free form and not too strict. So feel free to ask questions and to have a bit of discussions going on around the talks. The slots for the talks are generously sized, so we can have plenty of discussions around each topic. And hopefully the speakers will be able to answer questions from the audience. All right, so any questions at all about how the conference is organised? Or disorganised, as the case may be? We're going to have
one thing. Sorry, we got a request on the YouTube channel to or YouTube stream to try and make sure that the presentations are available. So
that's a very good idea.
So maybe I'll try and collect up links or PDFs from the various presenters. I guess my point is, if we all agree to that, if you're happy with that, if the presenters are happy, sharing their slides, if they could send me some.
I think that's a good idea, and I think we should probably put them on the discuss.rgpilot.org conference page. So we have, if we have a look at the discuss.rgpilot.org and have a look at this developer conference one here, I think putting links to your slides in the chat here is probably the best method. And so I can start off I can put links into, yes, I can log in with my GitHub account, and I normally don't log in from this computer. I'll organize that a little bit, but I'll pop that up for my one. If everyone could put links there, you could put it in after you've given your talk or before, whatever you like. Just make sure it's a read-only link to your slides. We don't want people going and defacing slides. So when you share the link, make sure it's read only. So I will now pop mine up. Links to my systems update talk slides. And let's pop that up there. All right, there it is. So there's a link to my slides. If anyone wants to see them, know what's coming. So if you're a speaker, please add a response in there with links to your slides. Can be done either before or after your talk, whatever you prefer. And that should help everyone be able to see what's in the slides. And you putting a link in the chat on the Zoom call can be a good idea as well, so people can follow along the slides directly. Thanks for that, Randy. All right, so is there anything else we want to cover before we just go to general discussion before the first talk? Nope. All right, everyone happy? Okay, so in that case, we can call this first session complete. And so we'll just have sort of general discussions among yourselves for the next few minutes before we start William's talk. And so we were having an interesting discussion just at the start there from Amilcar about some work he's doing on system identification. So Amilcar, feel free to continue that. And what's the timing for when you think you might be making that available?
So we hope that around the end of May, we should have it on the wiki.
And are you looking for people
so
to test that?
Can, yeah, to reproduce it and to test it, and to get a bit of review as well. So we are discovering we'll be disclosing step by step how to do the procedure, so that you can system identify your copter, build a model, a mathematical model of your entire copter. A part of it will provide the Symlink model of the ArduPilot code. We already have that. And then using the system identification flight modes, with some flights that all you need is to switch ArduPilot to system identification flight modes, and then fly for around 1.5 minutes. And that's it. You have then fully identified one axis, so pitch. So then you land, you repeat the same flight for roll, and repeat the same again 1.5 minutes for yaw.
Presumably putting in some significant activation on that axis.
Yes, of course. We'll also explain what kind of amplitudes, kind of what is to expect. Right now, the documentation just says you have to put an amplitude between 0 and 1. And we want to at least say, okay, if your copter is like this big, you should put an amplitude of, I don't know, 0.4. If your copter is like this big, put an amplitude of something else, so that at least people get the guideline. Because right now,
so for when people go to enable this,
say put an amplitude between 0 and 1, and that's
you're imagining that they would just load the parameters and the new parameters and go fly. It might be an idea to be able to switch on the new parameters using a switch. So if you could have a Lua script that has the new parameters in it, and then you a 3-position switch, at the bottom position, it's using your existing parameters, middle switch position, it switches to these new set of parameters, and you try them in flight, make sure they're okay, and the top position could be safe to then save those permanently.
Well, at that point, you do not have any new PID. So the first step that you do, all you need to do is to activate a set of parameters that activates the system identification. You still are flying.
Oh yes,
with
no, I
your-
mean, once you've run the MATLAB script and you've created
yeah.
the new set of
Yes.
parameters, having a way to activate those in flight, so get up to a safe altitude and then activate them.
Yes, that would
Could be very
definitely
powerful. And
Yes.
that would, because I imagine there will be cases where these new parameters are not good for the vehicle. And that where the, the automatic tuning has failed in some way.
Mhm.
And so being
Yes.
able to, I'd be more confident if I could activate those in flight. And I think having a Lua script where you have like a table of new parameters that gets generated
Mhm.
by your MATLAB script,
Mhm. Yep.
and then being able to switch that on and off. It could be done
That
as
would
just
be
a
really nice. So,
file.
yeah.
So we could have a helper Lua script as an applet, which reads off the SD card new palms, file, and then activates it with a 3-position switch, off, on, and save. And save would mean that they're activated then permanently.
Yes,
That could be useful for all kinds of parameters.
Yeah, that's right.
But what parameters specifically are we talking about changing here? What is being identified?
the model of the entire copter. So basically you're identifying the response, the dynamic model of your ESCs, your motors, your propellers, your battery system. So your entire propulsion system, you're identifying the differential equations for that. And then you add the differential equations of the PIDs of the software, and you have the entire closed loop. And then you can go and say, okay, I want to optimize this closed loop, and I want it to have this kind of response. So you give him some limits and some optimization where you want to go, and then it spits out a parameter file with all your PIDs optimized according to your desires.
Mm. How does it handle noise limiting? I mean, often PIDs are not based solely on the dynamics of the vehicle, but they're noise limited, right? So you can't have too high a D gain. You might want to have a high D gain. I'm sorry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in this case, that's a very good point. So in this case, what we do is that we tell them at this input, we have sampled the noise, and we know that we have this kind of noise at this input. And we want between the sensor input and the PIDs, we want to have an attenuation of 60 dBs at those frequencies. So you actually specify the Bode diagram.
Okay.
So
it'd be interesting to try.
What kind of frequency response you have from your sensors. And then it goes in there and changes all kinds of parameters on the Simulink model of the code until it gets it right. So it actually doesn't know what the filters are. It just goes in there and changes the parameters so that it can fulfill that goal. Yeah.
When I did system identification up and made this mode, this is exactly what I was expecting to happen sooner or later. So from my perspective, it's really good to see somebody doing this. So thank you.
It's going to be really interesting to try on a range of vehicles. And on real vehicles, a bit, from little racing quads up to, big heavy vehicles. Be really interesting to try, but I think it will be a lot safer if we had that mechanism for engaging the parameters in flight. And we can do that as a general mechanism where it can engage all sorts of parameters and, set and then save. That would, I think, be a generally useful Lua script, not just for tuning parameters, but for other things as well. So you can try a new set of settings.
Yes.
No good for settings that require a reboot, of course, but rebooting in flight is something that we have done, but generally is not recommended.
Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. Well, that's really exciting, Amilcar. So hopefully you'll have that, give a really good talk about that next year at the much more detailed talk with demonstrations. Yes. Yep, and maybe it'll be all all produced. I'll be interested to see whether it works at all for quad planes, because the extra aerodynamic drag of quad planes makes tuning a little bit different.
Yes, so that's a difficulty on this model, because we're assuming certain properties that you have on quadcopters and octocopters that you don't have in quad planes. So the modeling for a quad plane needs to be reviewed, but that's something that we are describing, and it should be easy for somebody else to change that, or we can work together with other people and change that for a quad plane.
Well, let's try it in multi-rotors first and just see how well it works over a range of multi-rotors. And particularly ones that may have significant vibration issues. I think that'll be interesting to see how well it works for those.
Yes, those are the more demanding types, yeah.
Yep.
And Leonard, thanks for all your work. We are really appreciate for the work you've done on system identification, and we hope that we can continue your work and that everybody can profit from it.
My pleasure, mate. The system identification mode is just the small little easy bit at the front. So
yeah, I know the stuff that when we started it, I was like, okay, 4 weeks and we'll be done, and that was like 4 months ago. But now we have some very, very nice results. We can really explain what we want, and the system really optimizes that and gives us what we want. So it's really nice, and really nice the fine granularity that you can actually explain exactly what kind of margins, what kind of gains you want, and it gets it done. It's very nice.
it'll be very interesting having another reference to compare back to results of auto tune for both the heli style auto tune, if we end up with a model for helicopters as well, and for the standard auto tune operators.
So one of the things that we did was that we grabbed the normal copter, relatively small, and with standard parameters, and we run system identification on that with no previous tuning, just normal tuning, and then we plotted all the graphs, and we did the same thing for after doing auto tune, and we did the same thing after optimizing the PIDs with this method. So you can see the 3 graphs with different colors, where you can see, okay, the standard parameters, the control loop is stable, but it's not perfect. And then you have the auto tune, it's better. And then we have our method that it's a lot better. So you can see that on both diagrams, and you can see that also on step response. So yeah,
I'd be interested to see those results.
Yep.
Separately, I've been slightly less complex. I'm working on a Lua script to automate the manual tuning steps, where you sort of raise D until it oscillates, then back off, raise P, oscillate, back off, that basic, manual tuning process. So I'm working on a Lua script to automate that. And just to get an initial tune on quad planes to make that process, because it's I don't think it's going to be hard to get that quite reliable as like an initial tuning system. Should work on copters as well. Won't be nearly as refined as as auto tune or the work that Amilcar is talking about, but should get us a fair bit of the way there for get the tune in the right ballpark.
Yeah, Yuri's written one of those apparently for rovers as well.
Right, nice.
Yep. Pro users or pro testers.
Excellent. All right, so it's just about time. So shall we start a couple of minutes earlier, or any more sort of general chat topics before we get going with William's talk?